Hello and welcome to the show. On this week's downhill stuff, I was supposed to be doing the some of those vehicles from the airport, like either the tug or the luggage cart. However, I cannot pick them up with a helicopter, so instead I am going to be using a golf caddy thing. I did realise after I went to all the effort of picking one up and lifting it all the way up here that you can actually spawn them in, so I didn't need to do all of that. But either way, we have a golf cart at the top of the hill, and we're going to drive it down and see what sort of times it can get. Now, there are a few issues with the golf caddy, as you would imagine. The hikers just don't give a crap about this thing going flying down. The first is the lack of brakes as we go soaring off into the countryside. It does tumble very well. Now we've lost the roof, so Michael's head is going to be a roll bar. It is hilarious watching this thing tumble. It really does roll, flip and spin and mess around, and somehow Michael is still holding on to it. I think he may well have landed on his head there. He definitely landed on his head there, and still everything is fine. Anyway, yes, it's a very sad looking golf buggy cart, whatever the thing's been called. Now, yes, issues with this. The big problems are the brakes, or the lack of them. Now, this is an electric vehicle, so brakes are slightly different on these. A lot of it's done with resistance within the motor as we go tumbling off again. I just couldn't get it stopped for the first corner, and we explode. Big explosion. It did a Pinto. Yeah, in real life, like remote control cars and stuff don't actually have proper brakes. It's all done with the resistance of the motor. Hybrid cars do have proper brakes, but a lot of that is still done with resistances. I don't know how technically modelled all of this stuff is. However, the brakes are pretty useless. It doesn't stop very quickly as we take the roof off on the railings. I was trying to save this one, however, I hit a rock, did a barrel roll, hit some more rocks, and then probably fell off the other side of the cliff. That wasn't the best save I've ever done in the history of me saving vehicles from crashing. Now we go to break the world speed record for a golf caddy as we go flying off down the mountain rather fast. Didn't explode that time. It did a remarkably good job of surviving these falls. I was expecting this thing to blow up. Like, this thing doesn't take much damage to kill one of these. I was expecting it to blow up every time I fell off a cliff, but apparently not. It was the first part of the course that was by far the trickiest. That first section, because of the lack of brakes or the lack of ability to slow it down, it was a real difficulty. However, the other big issue that I was finding with it doesn't like bumps. It doesn't like bumps at all. Now, this thing is relatively light. It has very little power. It's not very fast at all, but speed's not so much of an issue when you've got gravity on your side. I don't know how it survived that when it blew up earlier, but yeah, it's relatively light, and the problem is when you're off-road, when you're bouncing around over these bumps, that tends to sort of screw it up. You will see around here, there we go, I just hit a bump and then suddenly faced the wrong way, and I tried to save it, and then we spin around an awful lot more. I'm fairly sure this thing spent more time spinning around in circles than it did actually kind of going in the right direction. It was so easy, and again, somehow I don't blow up. It was so easy to spin this thing. You had to be so careful with the bumps. Of course, if you did get past that first section, that was by far the worst bit, it wasn't too bad. This jump here I was a little bit concerned about. However, I never had any issues on the landing of that with the golf buggy, which surprised me. However, there were some issues down here. Again, just caught a little bit too much of that sort of hillside, and once it was in the air when it landed, I tried to save it, almost managed to recover it, but didn't, and now we end up so close to the finish line as well. Tumbling off down the cliff. It's not an easy thing to drive off-road this, but it shouldn't be. It makes sense that this thing's very difficult to drive. You'll see here again just how easy. There we go. I've got no control of it. I managed to sort of save it, spin it around and then hit another bump, and now I've just lost all sorts of control. Still trying to recover from that first little incident, and there it's gone. Yeah. Once it starts spinning, I tried everything I could to stop it, but there wasn't a huge amount. Bye-bye, roof. There wasn't a huge amount you could do. The roof's doing better than the damn thing. But yeah, this should be difficult to drive down here. It is incredibly light. It should be thrown around, unlike the tank that's very heavy, that shouldn't be thrown around. On this one, I managed to eat a hiker. It doesn't go so well. Normally, there can be issues with the wildlife and with people wandering around the mountain. The hikers just don't react to a car on most occasions. However, with this vehicle, if you do run over something, it actually kind of gets caught because it's such a small, light, and very low low ground clearance. If you do run over a person or the animals, it did cause a few issues, as you saw there. Karma got me back in a minute, as I tried to keep control of it. It had been a fairly good run, this one, until about here, where, oops, there's a bump. And now I'm trying to save it. I'm manically trying to stop it from spinning. And I didn't. And there we go. It fell off the cliff. Because I was right near the end. I was going to finish the run anyway, just in case it took so long that I eventually gave up. So I did have a sort of time. But yeah, it's so annoying when you crash off right at the very end on this. Anyway, it was a couple of attempts later, and I did manage to get a clean run, cleanish. And I think it was a fairly good run. With the Golf Caddy. It's a real nightmare driving this thing off-road. It is quite fun. This isn't the worst handling car. I got so lucky there. Running wide over that kind of rock often sort of throw cars off, and I was amazed when that thing landed and didn't sort of spin around. I've got to be a little bit cautious over here. Again, it's very, very easy to try and go too fast with these cars. Yes, although it's not the most exciting thing having to be on the brake half the way down, but if you actually ever want to get to the end, you have to do that, because they do pick up some serious speed. Even this little thing will pick up some fairly serious speed. This part of the course isn't too bad. It's not that bumpy, so we don't have too many issues of it spinning around. Sure, there's not quite the acceleration in this thing as the big cars, but handling isn't too bad. As I said, it's light, it's fairly nimble. You've just got to be careful of the bumps. I didn't fancy going off the large jump there, and since I was going slow enough, I could get it turned to go down that little side road thing. Yeah, it's the landing on the big jumps, or it's just the landing on the little bumps as well, that really do kind of screw this thing over. You've got to be a little bit careful with that kind of thing. Up until this point, actually, it had been a relatively environmentally friendly run. This is the first run I do that I don't, a hiker actually reacts to me, or I don't hit any wildlife, or I don't run over anybody, and I'm using an electric vehicle, so the environmentalists will be happy. This jump, I can't tell you why that jump was fine in the Golf buggy. I've had problems with that jump in other vehicles. For some reason, the Golf thing never had any issues. I was being a little bit careful down here this time. Didn't want to screw it up because it's so annoying when you get this far and fall off the road down here. Final corner, a little bit too fast corner. They managed to get away with it. I'm sliding a Golf Caddy around, a little bit bumpier over these next sections, but doesn't matter too much as the Golf cart is across the line and doesn't get stopped in time and ends up over this side. So yeah, it was a surprisingly clean run with the Golf vehicle. It's not a particularly good off-road vehicle, but what on earth are you expecting? It's supposed to be driven on a golf course, not down the side of a mountain. It did pretty well, I think, all things considered. Anyway, for the sensible vehicle this week, I am using the BF injection. Lots of people wanted to see me have a go with this. It's basically a highly modified Beetle, modified for off-road racing, so it should be pretty damn good. For this, I'm going to run this one at night for a bit of variety, and because it was night time when I started filming this, but I thought it would be interesting to see what it was like at night. Not really a hindrance, as you can have the lights on at the front and that illuminates the track just as well. I've driven down this blooming road so many times now, I know it fairly well. So yeah, the fact that it's at night isn't too bad, and this is the first run that I'm going to do with this buggy. It is a really nice off-road car, this thing. It was always going to be. It's been it's designed for racing, so I'm not surprised that it's good, but it is great fun. I personally still prefer the Sand King driving off-road. It's not as quick as this, and it's probably not technically as good off-road, but the Sand King's kind of fun just because it's so big and rather silly. We come through the first section, had no problems going down the first bit this time. I do an interesting roll. I'm still not entirely sure how I managed to roll that, because I didn't, like, on the inside there is a little bit of kind of like a mound that I thought I'd hit, but when I checked back when I was looking at editing this, I don't actually hit that. I think I just run wide, and when there's a hill on the outside I get my wheel sort of stuck on that and it kind of rolls me over. Yeah, not entirely sure how that works. Now, this run wasn't going to be a particularly good run, as I managed to roll it and I went pretty wrong there. However, since I was still sort of learning this car, I thought I'll just carry on and see what happens. And I was doing amazingly well for a first run, and get through another jump and then almost get too carried away on the nose of the thing. It was almost doing like the tank was, but I just about managed to stop that one. It's still not going to be a bad time. However, ooh, things go wrong on that jump. You see, the Golf buggy had no issues, everything else does. I so nearly managed to save this one as well. Almost get it landed on the lower road. It doesn't. And then it goes rolling and spinning. down the hill. I do quite like doing this at night with when you start rolling the car and bouncing around with the headlights on. It looks quite amusing. I do apologise as well if you're watching this in lower qualities and it's very dark and you can't see very much. I didn't think about that. Sorry. I think it will probably be alright if you're watching it on full screen and stuff. But yeah, this buggy was really rather easy to drive down here. It's got very, very good brakes, very good handling. This time I'm taking... I thought about trying to get it stopped to go down the other route, but you don't actually need to in the buggy. You can get away with taking the jumps. It normally lands fairly well. Yeah, I didn't have too many issues at the start of the course. However, if you do make one little mistake on this route, it might not screw you over on that corner, but the chances are it's going to screw you on over later on, as you see there. I just ran a tiny bit wide, and by doing that I got myself caught up on the wall, and then I end up all out of position for the later corners, and then it will screw you up somewhere further down the line. I wasn't having too many issues with the start of the course. Didn't mean I didn't have any, as I tried to avoid some rocks and just got it a little bit wrong, and there we go, off down the mountainside. Yeah, and there we explode as well. It was a lot easier down this first section. Much better brakes. One of the best cars, I think, for getting stopped down there, and it has very, very good turning, very good grip on this off-road surface. I do manage to do something that I haven't done before on here. I managed to completely balls up a run without actually falling off the mountain. There was a little bit too much handbrake used on there. Yeah, I could have backed it up and carried on, but this thing was going to go for a good time, so I wanted to kind of restart that. And this is only on the 5th run that I get a nice clean run that I was perfectly happy with. I could practice for ages and ages and get the ultimate perfect run, but when it comes to this, first of all, my timing is not exactly accurate. I get things a little bit wrong through the first section. I somehow get away with it. It was incredibly sideways, and again, I took out the fence, but I didn't fall off the mountain. But yeah, when it comes to these runs, I don't want to spend forever trying to get that perfect run. So I say that if when I do the first run that I'm happy with, that's clean, that's I think is pretty damn fast, then that's the one that's going to count. Otherwise, I could be here forever trying to get faster and faster. Much the same as we have when Stig does the power laps on Forza, and what he will do on Forza 5. You know, you have to kind of limit how much time you spend on these. Otherwise, you can just keep going and getting faster. And that's why I'm sure you'll be able to beat these times if you try it yourself, if you give it some practice. Because yeah, we can't set the ultimate speed because it takes so blooming long to practice. Anyway, this run was less environmentally friendly. I may have run over a few animals. Got fairly poor landing on the jump there. Just about managed to recover it. Yeah, I prefer not taking the jumps if I can help it. However, sort of getting down the small, like narrow roads around the side of it often means you're going a lot slower. So if I think the vehicle can survive it, then I will take the jump. I very nearly lost it there as well, sort of hitting too much of the inside of that. Very nearly rolled it. Also nearly rolled it down there. Again, it was another one of the wheels getting caught on the outside on some sort of mound. And then there we go. On 2 wheels, on its side, across the finish line, and I managed to get it stuck, which was all very clever of me. So, yeah, we are well and truly wedged in between there. Oh dear. So, yeah, that's the BF injection. It's a great off-road vehicle. Personally, I think I still prefer the Sand King for messing around off-road because it's silly, it's bigger. It's not quite as good as this thing, though. This thing is very, very fast. And yeah, it only took, what was that, 5 attempts, not sure how long that was, not too long though at all, to get this thing down the bottom in a very sensible, I would say pretty damn fast time. Anyway, of course it is now onto the leaderboards to have a look at the time. Well, no surprise, the BF injection goes to the top with a 1:31.3, almost over 7 seconds quicker than the Sand King. The interesting thing though is the Golf Caddy goes into 3rd. It actually beats the Rebel's time. Now I am probably going to redo the Rebel at some point in case you missed the first episode. The Rebel that I used was my own personal one from GTA Online, and when you're doing this in GTA Online, you can't quick save at the top of the mountain. So yeah, if you screw up, if you blow the thing up, it's an awful long time to reset. So that Rebels was done sort of really rather quickly, and I was being a lot more cautious on that run than I am with these other cars. So I think I will probably redo the Rebel maybe next week. To give it a fair comparison to the other proper off-road vehicles. Of course, yeah, they're quicker than the bus that had to cheat. That's what the little asterisk means in case, again, you missed the first episode. And the tank is still at the bottom. Anyway, that is it for this episode. I'm quite surprised at how quickly that Golf Caddy got down to the bottom of the hill, considering what it is. But yeah, if you have suggestions for both silly and sensible vehicles, you would like to see me kind of, I guess, sort of race, then please do leave them in the comment section. I'll have a look through, and my favourites will be in a video at some point. However, until next time, goodbye.